spoke for our Bible class and preached this year. And so Chad is the caretaker, Chad and his wife are the caretakers at Delano Bay. And is this morning's presentation about Delano Bay? Yeah. That'll be really interesting for us to go over. Before Chad, you start, maybe, are there any prayer requests that you have this morning? I'll see if I'll pray for right now.
Absolutely. So, I'll go to the Dixie Jones, Rochelle Fresno. Yeah. So, Rochelle, we're waiting to Fresno to say her goodbye because Dixie is in the last stages of Alzheimer's. So, she was completely lost to memory. Not even just lost a lot of it.
Heavenly Father, we are grateful for this morning being together here. Father, we're excited for the work that's going on in Delano. We know it's been through many struggles, and we're hopeful to hear an update this morning. Thank you for having his wife being here this morning and joining us. Father, we do pray this morning for Dixie, who has struggled for so long with her health now, and we pray for Rochelle also as she travels. And Father, it's always hard these events like this that strike the family. We pray for the whole family. Thank you for Dixie and for the good grandmother that she was to Rochelle and the family. Father, we also pray for Victor, and we're thankful that his treatment is working, and we pray for good results in the upcoming PET scan, and pray that he can endure the ongoing treatment that we're going through. We're thankful for this. Father, we pray for Jared this morning also, and make sure they're feeling well. We pray that it's something serious and that we can get better soon. Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this body here. And always we pray to be good servants of yours. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I kept not saying your name because I didn't want to.
Oh, fine. Shelly.
Good morning. If I am too loud, just someone give me a nod. So, who here knows about Delano Bay Christian Camp and what it is? Okay, about half and half. So, Delano Bay Christian Camp, for those that don't know, is kind of the Church of Christ Christian Camp of the Pacific Northwest. We have two that are in this kind of general area. One is Delano Bay, which is in the South Sound area on the Key Peninsula, across the Narrows, if you know where that is. And then there's Sauk River, which is a little bit north and east, up near the base of the Cascades in Darrington, Washington. And as what he was saying earlier, I am Chad Lewis, and I am the caretaker at Delano Bay Christian Camp. That's where me and my wife and my daughter Lily live, and I know to Clayton and his wife, they met at Delano Bay, if I'm correct, and so they met there going to camp there, and so there's a lot of legacy here at Springbrook when it comes to Delano Bay Christian Camp. So a little bit of background of me. I've been in ministry over 10 years. Me and my wife started as house parents. If you don't know what house parenting is, it's where you raise lots of orphans. We've raised 40 or so teenage boys in our life. It's not fostering. They didn't come into our house. We worked for organizations in which we lived in a place where the kids lived with us. We did that for a little while, and then I moved into youth ministry in New Mexico. And then from there, I became a pulpit minister in upstate New York. And then COVID hit, and it was kind of detrimental to our small congregation up there. I moved to Arkansas to be with family. That's where my dad is, in Arkansas. And then when the Lord called me back into service, Delano was there. And there's a funny story about Delano. They were looking for a caretaker, and they had not officially published it to the Christian Chronicle. Does anyone know who the Christian Chronicle is? They hadn't officially published it to it, but somehow it popped up on our online Christian Chronicle feed, and so we called, and they didn't even know it had published yet. And so we applied, and the rest is history. We came up to the Northwest and realized it is a minefield of need when it comes to workers, when it comes to the church. One of the places that we have been in Lowndes County, Mississippi, 98% of Lowndes County on a Sunday morning is in church. It's not the same here. It's probably reversed. It's probably 2% of the population. And so we've been dealing with a bit of a culture shock, but luckily we've kind of smoothed through that. But we've been in ministry a long time. And if you don't know what's happened at Delano, for the past almost 2 years, we've been trying to get our lodge rebuilt. So we have not been able to do our camp season. At the end of the presentation today, I will take questions and we can talk about the lodge specifically. But today we want to talk more about what we're doing beside the lodge, outside of the lodge, when it comes to like our vision and future. If you don't know, Thomas Morse is the president of the board at Delano Bay Christian Camp, and Thomas, of course, is one of the ministers here at Springbrook. Again, there's a big tie to Springbrook to Delano Bay Christian Camp. Lisa Bratcher is the vice president. Don Malore is our treasurer. Lisa is at Port Orchard Church of Christ. Don Malore is at Lakeview Church of Christ. Gene McCool is a secretary, and he is an elder at Puyallup Church of Christ. And then Laurel Ann goes here at Springbrook. Churches that are what are considered active churches of Delano Bay have 2 people on the board. We're always looking for more people on the board, but Laurel Ann and Thomas are the representatives for Springbrook. And then Cindy Odin goes to Puyallup Church of Christ, and Paula Davis goes to Lakeview Church of Christ. And Paula's, of course, Clayton and Carter's mom. So our vision is we provide a facility for Bible-based youth camps, spiritual retreats, and special gatherings. And in doing so, we seek to encounter Jesus the Christ and further his kingdom. On paper, it's a very simple mission. But in reality, it's very difficult. It's kind of like the Great Commission in the sense that go into all the nations, preach, teach, and spread the gospel, and baptize everyone in the name of Jesus. Simple on paper, very difficult in reality. But that is our vision. That's what we're seeking to try to do. And without our lodge, we've had some difficulty doing that. But even without our lodge, we seek to do that mission, and we seek to continue to do that vision out at Delano. And we do have hopes and dreams beyond just getting our lodge fixed and getting things back to normal. I think COVID was really interesting for people because it kind of got everyone out of that rut of what was tradition. And between COVID and now with the lodge being down, there's been some gaps there at Delano Bay when it comes to camp. But the good thing is that we don't have to necessarily go back to what it was. We can move into a better, brighter future for the next generation of kids that start to go to camp. Not that anything was wrong, but we always want to keep moving forward with our hopes and dreams. So here are some of the board-approved projects and infrastructure and facilities that we want to start adding to Delano as we grow it and we grow the mission. One is drainage and landscape. The tides are rising. I don't know if y'all see that much out here, but over on the bay, the tides are getting higher. I came here almost 2 years ago, and I have had 4 what are called century tides happen. So the math doesn't add up. It's supposed to happen once a century, and I've had 4. The tides are higher. And with the tides being higher, we have drainage issues, and we also have flooding in some of our cabins that are down on the bay. We need stuff for our road and parking lot. Right now, our road kind of like goes half around. It makes more like a horseshoe rather than a loop. Something we want to do is continue that loop around the entire camp. We also need more rock. I think since the last time, y'all may have gotten rock out here. With all the rain and everything, as y'all know, up here, stuff drains away. We need more rock for our roads and for our parking lots. Cabin repairs. Maple, I think, is actually the sponsor, or Springbrook is the sponsor of one of the cabins out there. It's called Maple. And it's the one that will survive all the flooding. Currently, it has survived. And we want to continue to build Maple and keep it active. And there are things that we need to do with it, including its roof. It takes a lot of kind of heavy hitting down there on the bay from not only the tides, but from waves and wind and stuff like that. And so we want to keep Maple going as it's one of our cabins that is going to survive the next 5 to 10 years. And then things that we want to add on to grow the camp, to give it more of what it is. So there's a little picture, if you can kind of see, of some of our tides. If you've ever been to the camp, that's like almost to the middle of our parking lot. I don't put the video up here that I could show you that shows cabins underwater, because I've seen some people that have been out to Delano often where it kind of shocks them when they see cabins underwater. But that kind of shows you how high the tides come in. And infrastructure is our priority. The only way we can make it good for the kids and good for camp is if we have a good foundation of what we're doing there. And we know we can't build anything but on Christ. He is the rock, and everything goes through him. One of the things that we want to do is add a zero-turn mower. Do y'all know what a zero-turn mower is? Y'all are the first congregation that I've spoken to that has raised hands with a zero-turn. The irony is when I spoke at Lakeview, they have one and didn't know what it was. A zero-turn mower makes mowing quicker, faster, and it saves on gas because it's just more efficient. Currently, it takes 8 to 9 hours to mow. It's about 7 acres of grass that has to get mowed. It'll cut that time in half with a zero-turn. And because right now we have kind of residential quality mowers, they break often. They don't generally last through the entire season, and we're trying to upgrade to a more commercial-based mowing system. Our biggest priority right now is our septic electrical. Our septic system, where it's called a large on-site septic service, is tied into one of those cabins that keeps flooding. And if it floods and affects the electrical of the cabin, it will affect the electrical of the septic, which means no septic for the entire camp. So one of the things that we have to do is we have to get that electrical off of the cabin and kind of on its own area, safe from the water. We also want to finish the road. Like I was saying earlier, it's like a horseshoe. When you come into the camp, it just kind of gets to a cabin and ends. We want to continue it up to the higher area and make a continuous loop. It makes it better for our RVs and big vehicles that come in. When we get propane delivered, our propane guy, I feel so bad for him. He has to back up backwards, like almost the entire camp to get up where the propane is, rather than drive all the way around. And almost every RVer we've had has said, if you have a loop, it makes it a lot easier for us. Not entirely sure why. I don't have an RV, but that's what they tell me. So, and then I talked about drainage, and see if you can kind of see with the picture, we have there's like a high spot. Wish I had a laser. The green button. All right. Right there. That's a high spot. It's like, that's like where the tides come normally and they get stopped. But when it comes over that spot, it makes a bowl. So when those tides finally go out, all that water there is stuck. There's nowhere for it to go. So we got to get drainage to get all that water out once it comes in. This is happening in the winter 4 or 5 times now. Thomas was out not too long ago, and he noticed even in summer the tides are higher. We had a tide just a week ago, or a week and a half ago, that came all the way up to the cabins in summer, which is very rare. I talked to landscape architects in the area, and they said the tides are higher. This is what's happening around all the South Sound, is that the tides are just rising. Some of the additional facility improvements we want, as I've mentioned before, Maple. We need a new roof and structure upgrades to keep it going for years to come. We want it to last the long haul. We want to put things in there that are going to last 5, 10, 20 years on Maple. Maple is beautiful. It still has that rustic quality, but has also been modernized on the inside. But we need to do some structural improvements to make sure it stays that way. We want to add a washer and dryer, an outdoor one for the people that rent cabins and RVers, and also for camp staff that is based outside. That's one of the things that have been said that they would love to have people that rent, is that they have a washer and dryer. People that have little babies and stuff, they've all said they would love to be able to do laundry while they were down there at camp. We also want to add a pickleball court at some point. Whether that's repainting our basketball court to include those lines, or adding a new pickleball court in general to our area. If you didn't know, it was created on Bainbridge Island. And it's the fastest growing sport in America. It can be played by anyone from very little to very old. Our next door neighbors out at the camp, they put a pickleball court out, and they have like pickleball tournaments. They have people there all the time playing pickleball, all different ages, and it's something that we would love to add to the camp, especially for renters and for the camp itself. Some of the other things that we have in our hopes and dreams is an info center. We've learned that when people come rent, they'll rent for like an entire week, but after about day 3 or 4, they're looking for stuff to do, whether in the area or at camp itself. They don't know where to get that information. The Key Pen is not easy to find out what to do, but there is stuff to do down the Key Peninsula. So an info center that will help throughout the camp to give people information on what to do. We'd love to add at some point an archery range for camps. Sometimes people have brought in archery ranges for their camps, but it's not permanent. We have plenty of space to make a permanent archery range for the camp, something that could be used not only during camp, but also for renters and things like that. We also do a lot of scout rentals to Boy Scout and Cub Scout packs and troops. And archery is one of the things that they said that if there was a permanent one on site, that would be able to help them for purposes of renting. A lot of people in the Pacific Northwest, especially on the Key Peninsula, are interested in mountain bike loops. We have a big mountain biking area out on the Key Pen, and we would love to add something like that down at Delano. Not difficult. We're not talking like a black trail or anything like that. More like a nice green level trail that would give the renters something to do. Almost everyone that rents brings bikes out there. We have a state park that's less than a mile from the camp that a lot of people ride to, but it would be nice to add something else there. Also, weddings. I don't know if y'all were married there, but I know y'all met there. But we recently had a wedding that was out in early June out at Delano. People love getting married out there, especially if they meet at camp. And it's beautiful. If you've ever been down to Delano, it's gorgeous, it's amazing, it's right there on the water. And we can provide a place for our local churches and our local Christians that isn't $30,000 like a lot of venues, but provide them a place to get married and it be a very special place. Farther into the future, we want to look at our bay upgrades. One of the main things we have is the bay. We have all this water. We have all this ability to do things on water if we can get the infrastructure in there. Last year around this time at one of our work days, we built a boat rack for our kayaks and canoes. We want to expand on that at some point. We want to have where there's more activities in the bay, especially when it comes to camp, that we can offer. Tent decks. At some point, some of those cabins, and as hard as it is going to say, at some point, some of those cabins are going to have to be taken down. we have to add space not only for our camp staff, but also things that people that can rent. So we want to add some maybe tent decks and put like either yurts or nice tents in that allows a different kind of renting. Storage. As we get more equipment and we're able to take care of the facility better, we need like storage to do that with. And those are like, half containers or full containers that can hold equipment, especially through the winter. And then upgrade our quads. Our quads are where the campers stay right now. There's 4 boy quads and 4 girl quads, and they each hold 12 bunkers per. But during the off season, they don't really have a lot of use. And what we're trying to do is change that. And if we can transform that space into a space that can be used for something else, like co-ops and classrooms and things like that. There's Murphy beds that when you pull them up, they actually become whiteboards underneath. And you can transform that space in the off season to something that can still be used. And so we're looking at doing some quad upgrades to do that, as well as redoing the bathrooms to put it in a way where families can rent the quads rather than a cabin. Using that space in multiple ways allows it to not just be a camp during the summer, but to be a retreat center and to be a center throughout the entire year. Most people think of Delano in terms of the 4 to 8 weeks of camp. But we have 52 weeks that we can be offering our services and offering that sanctuary for people to have throughout the entire year. And if we can have that transformative space and versatile space, we'll be able to do that better. We would love to be busy 52 weeks a year. We would love that. That, I think, is the ultimate goal for me and Thomas and everyone else on the board, is that we're holding church and youth retreats year-round, whether it's through Delano Bay itself doing it, or it's Springbrook doing your family camp, because I know y'all traditionally have done family camp down there. I think around September is normally when y'all do it. Those family camps, church camps, and retreats, men's retreats, women's retreats, elders retreats. It'd be really good for the elders of the Pacific Northwest to get together and talk about their problems. Minister retreats. Get the ministers together and say, hey, we're struggling with this. Get your children's ministers together and say, hey, we have a whole generation of COVID kids. What can we do about it? And we at Delano is kind of that neutral space that everyone can kind of come and meet at. Co-op space. Co-ops are really big right now. I know Puyallup is doing a hybrid co-op. If you haven't heard of that, they're doing one. They do one at Lakeview. As you know, in education right now in public school systems, they're kind of going some different directions. A lot more people are pulling their kids out of public schools, putting them into homeschools, but they still need that socialization and they still need that learning that they can get from a traditional school. Co-ops offer that. And that's something that Delano can be simply because of the biology that exists there. We have 27 endangered species that are on Delano's land. On any given day, you see eagles, seals, otters, not to count deer. Deer will walk right up to you there, as well as clams, gooey ducks, razor clams, crab. All of it is there at Delano from just a biology standpoint. So here are some of the costs that we're dealing with when it comes to these things. These are based on bids that we've gotten. And as you know, like every year, those bids are going up, not down. They're big numbers, and we know that. But we also know that if we don't get our infrastructure in and we don't get some of these things done, especially like roof stuff and septic things, it will cost more later if we wait for them to fully break down. Some of it is additions, Do we need the outdoor washer and dryer? No, it doesn't hinder us from having camp, but it is a benefit for our renters, and it gives more amenities, and people would then be more enticed to come out. So here's some of the costs. I'm not going to go into too many detail of the cost, but you can see that it's a total of around $61,000. But there's other ways to give to Delano. Plan a church workday. We have found that when we do work days, we somehow always plan our workday on a church's event because there's so many churches that are involved with Delano. So we've kind of restructured and said, okay, let's put it in the hands of the churches. If a church wants to have a work day, they know their skills, they know what they're able to do, and so they can plan with me, a work day to come out, and I'll have specific projects that I can send to the church and say, which one of these makes sense to you? What skills do you have that you can do this list of projects? We pick those projects, you plan the day, we feed you, come on out and do that work day. They're always fun. You know, I don't like working people to the bone because you work them too hard, they never want to come back. So I like to make it at least organized and fun on those work days. Also, outdoor Christmas lights. We would love to decorate for Christmas at Delano. There is not a lot of light, literally and figuratively, down on the Keep Hen. And to be the light down there, we would love to be able to decorate for Christmas and have a drive-through for people, something that the community could come down and see. And the way we were thinking about doing it is almost telling the story of Jesus with the lights, not just a nativity scene, but the entire story of Jesus as they drive through. It's one of the reasons why we want to finish the road to make it a loop. They can literally do a drive-through of the lights, and just by observing, they can get Jesus from birth through death and even to resurrection with the lights, and be truly a light down on the Keep Hen. And then if you are an out-of-the-box thinker and you're creative and you can think of ways that you can do fundraisers, we would love the help to do fundraisers and the way to collect and do things. That's another way. We had a lady that at Central Kitsap, the one thing of this discussion that she really was interested in was the outdoor Christmas lights. So she's putting together like a whole package to send out to people to try to raise money for that particular thing. It's why we kind of throw it all out there, because there's something up here that you might really connect to. And everyone has a different feel for those that have been to Delano of the things that they connect to. So those are other ways. So thank you for listening to that quick kind of synopsis. Now I can kind of be open for questions as well as any updates you want to know about the lodge for those that know. Yes?
Don't they have their 501c tax status at the point?
Yes, we do. Any money donated, you can get tax write-off for that.
Can contributions be project specific?
Yes, and in fact, some of those listed, I would prefer, I think I put it on there. Nope, too far. Yeah, we need itemized donations for the following special projects. If they're not itemized, they go to our general fund, which is still not bad, but that just helps with our kind of like day-to-day cost.
So if I wanted to lawn the outdoor laundry, I can contribute to that?
Yes, specifically.
I know that money goes for that.
Yep, it'd be itemized just to those specific things. Yeah, Randy has it. He can definitely keep it and give it to y'all and use however you wish. You could put it on your website as a side link or anything like that. The same discussion is also online at delanobay.org. Well, I would absolutely love to give you a 100% guarantee that we would have camp next year. Me and Thomas recently had a talk, and I'll talk a little bit outside of that if that's okay. We're going to do our best that no matter what, regardless of the lodge, that we have camp next year. We are well aware that kids are not getting the camp. And to me, that goes completely against what Christ is saying when he says, don't hinder the little kids from coming to me. And it hurts being there as missionaries, not seeing it do what it's designed to do. And we've gone through a lot when it comes to getting this lodge back in order. But we're going to do whatever we can to get camp going once again, because they need it. The kids need it. Are there any little kids in here? No. Is this okay to say? So.
They're pointing at Thomas.
Oh, okay. I'll use my words wisely here. I was preaching at Woodinville not too long ago, and we were on our way back. And it's an hour and a half drive for us. And we were crossing the Narrows. And in the moment we were crossing the Narrows, we saw a young man, couldn't be older than 13, decide to jump. And Shelly was the first person to call 911 at the time. And our immediate thought was, we're not reaching the kids. We're not reaching them. And That's why we have to get back to having camp. We have learned probably more than anyone else that Delano is that neutral place that all the churches can gather at, especially the kids for retreats and different stuff like that. And we got to get it back going. We know it. And right now, I mean, I honestly feel like there's a lot of pushback from the enemy to try to keep it from being what it's supposed to be. And without camp, you wouldn't have Clayton and his family. You know, and there's many, many other families you would not have without Delano Bay Christian Camp.
Give us a little status on the lodge.
So quick update on the lodge. The first year that I was here, we went through the whole process with our general contractor, trying to get the permits. What was holding us up was a fire sprinkler system. Once a place gets kind of at the state it's at and has to be remodeled, it has to be brought up to code. The fire sprinkler system kept ballooning in cost. We would submit, it would get higher and higher and higher. And it ballooned to almost $1 million, pretty much either right at $1 million or an over $1 million, just for the sprinkler system. So at that point, we kind of went back and said, we need to start from ground zero. We let what permits we did have kind of lapse out. We went back and said, okay, we're going to go with an architect to help us get through this issue of getting these permits. And not just getting permits, but getting them at a cost that's reasonable. And so it's been in the hands of the architect since March, around March. The building part has been approved. It's into the fire again, and so that's what's kind of holding it up again to get the full permits. But work that it has already been done in the lodge, the windows have all been changed out already. The electrical's already been done. The HVAC's been done. At least everything that goes behind the walls has already been done. And we're just kind of waiting for that last little bit to get approved, and then the work can kind of continue. So that's where we're at with that. Pierce County is not the easiest to work with when it comes to their permitting process.
Where are you at with the total cost to like what's already been donated? Is there, like, I assume that you guys aren't at necessarily zero at each of those projects or.
These current projects up here, I'm at zero.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, I'm at zero. I've had 2 kayaks donated since I started talking to everyone about this. But everyone's focused on the lodge, generally. Everyone's kind of waiting because we still don't know if we are going to need money for the lodge and need donations to help with the lodge. And so I think a lot of people are just kind of in reserve going, okay, what's happening with the lodge? What's happening with the lodge? But yeah, we're at zero, but that's okay, you know.
What's the condition as far as security and unauthorized entry and vandalism? Any issues?
So originally, vandalism is what caused the lodge to be vandalized, is that it was someone came in and flooded it. Part of what we have to do with the upgrades with our insurance company is put in a big security system that is tied into the internet. Now there's internet at the lodge, has its own internet there, and the security system will be much more advanced than it was when it comes to cameras and alerting authorities if someone breaks in.
To make it much more obvious that you're on private property.
Yeah, if you can't hear Shelly, she's saying signage. We have a little bit of a weird, I'll actually go to the picture to help make. So right here along this road, this is actually public access to the bay. We can't block it off. We can't put a gate. Y'all have a gate right here. I cannot gate off any of this. I can gate off just where the cabins are, but not anything here. They technically have like a 10 to 15 foot space that they can come down and have access. And so with that, and there is actually on Google Maps a road that goes all the way down to the bay that way. And with that, people come down a lot. And that's part of the reason we are there, is to make sure that if that's where they're going, that's where they stay. And some of the things we do need is signage. We need to show our lines better on where Delano Bay is. If you know where the sign is now, when you drive up, there's kind of a curve, and the sign is kind of tucked into the garden. It's a beautiful sign, but here's the thing. When you drive up to Delano Bay and you haven't been there in a while, your eye doesn't go forward, it goes right to the water every time. And that's what people, they drive down, and then that water and that view hits, and you have Mount Rainier right there in the distance. That's what their eyes go. They don't see the sign of, welcome to Delano Bay Christian Camp. So we want to put a sign in a different spot. So when they make that turn, they see, oh, this is a Christian camp. This is what this is. With better signage, and I think also painting the cabins the same color and getting a more uniform look throughout the camp, they'll realize, oh, I'm not where I should be. I think that will definitely help. Any other questions?
Who has title to the Granberg home?
Currently, the person who holds the title to the Granberg home is a man named Barry Orloff, which he's looking to sell the home. He bought it from the children after Sam passed away, and he's looking to sell as well. His wife did not enjoy living out there. It was too isolated for her. So they have a big condo in Gig Harbor. I kind of mow their grass for them right now, but he's looking to sell his home. And that's part of why we want the road, is traditionally that was part of the camp. And so it was easy for campers to kind of move into that area when it comes to the grass, but they can't anymore. And the road would help cut that parcel line, and it's easy to tell kids, don't cross the road. Don't cross the road, you go into someone else's property.
Are the water tanks up above still fully functional, operating vessels?
Oh yeah. The water tanks are still up on the hill. That's where we get our water from. One of the things about the water tanks was in the ballooned fire sprinkler system, they wanted us to add a whole nother one up there. And we're like, we're not doing that. We're not going to add another 12.5 thousand gallon tank just for a sprinkler system there. But no, we function on roughly 25,000 gallons of water, and we have plenty of water. Any other questions? I have about 4 or 5 minutes. Thomas, you want to add anything? As board president?
I really appreciate Chad coming out here this morning. Sorry I was late for class. When you're not teaching class, sometimes you're late. And so sometimes I'm late when I am teaching class. So I think the biggest thing that the board and Chad were all focused on is the lodge right now. We've been focused on it for 2 years. It is a nightmare of a process. If you want to know more details about all that, come talk to me sometime, and I will cry a little bit in front of you and talk to you about it. There's 3 parties to the repair. We have our contractor, who we're paying to rebuild. He can't do anything until the county gives us a permit to start the rebuilding, and the insurance company needs to give us the rest of the money to finish the project as well. So right now, those last 2 parties are stalling and waiting for all whatever they can muster. They don't want to do this project right now. They don't want us to do the project right now. So please pray for them. Pray for a change there. The hardest part about this whole project has been the bureaucratic nightmare that is insurance companies and the county planning and works department. So we do see a light at the end of the tunnel. It looks like the county, because we hired this architect, we should have done this right at the beginning, but we don't know what we're doing. We don't do major rebuilds of large projects, and so we didn't realize that's what we needed to do. There was a small technicality with the way that our building was set up that the architect noticed and was able to work with the county assessor to reclassify our building, and then all the problems that we had with this $1 million sprinkler all went away. And so we couldn't have known that, but now we do know that. And when they resubmitted all the permits, they had a conversation with the fire marshal themselves, and he approved the plan. So now we're just finalizing that approval And so we're praying that we get that permit in the next month or two. Once we get that permit in hand, we can start the reconstruction, but we still need the money from the insurance company. And the insurance company has been dragging their feet through the whole process. And because it's been such a long process, we've had multiple, what are they called, adjusters? We've had multiple adjusters at the company change jobs. Every time we get a new adjuster, we got to get them up to speed. We've had an adjuster retire, and so then they brought a new adjuster in. We got to get that person up to speed. So it's been frustrating. So your prayers would be appreciated, and just know that we're trying our best to get the camp up and running. Like Chad said, I think we're all done not having camp though. So we're going to come up with a plan to have camp next summer.
Might be different.
Yeah, it might be different, but we're planning on having camp.
You have a website with all this information updated on,
Mm-hmm.
including address to make contributions.
Yes, and you can also do it online. One specific thing to pray on, not just for the lodge, is in October we have our board retreat, but really it's going to be like our board strategy meeting, and it's going to be a weekend where the whole board comes out and we strategize not just what's currently happening, but our 3-5-year plans. And prayers for that will be really needed, because coming together and coming up with solid plan that we feel led to do is really important. So specific prayers with that would be really good.
Do you guys have an idea of what you guys want to do for next year's summer camp? And are churches able to contribute to that strategy for putting something together for next year?
Well, I think that's going to be part of what we do at this board retreat, is coming up with a more laid out plan. We know from talking to a lot of the churches in the area, they really want, people are ready to do camp at whatever it needs to happen. At first we were like, and we were told from the very beginning, the contractor was like, oh, you're going to have camp this year. And then that didn't happen. And then it was like, oh, you're definitely going to have camp next year. So we've been kind of like drawn into this process as well. We were kept being told it'll be fine, it will be fine. At this point, I think we're going to take it back into our own hands and say, we're going to do it regardless. We're going to make it happen.
We do have plans for how we're going to do camp. We have camps for 1st grade to 12th grade, and then there's about 4 or 5 weeks of camp scheduled. It's in the month of July normally, end of June to through the month of July.
Big hang up is how you do food. Out the lodge, how does food happen? So there's been a lot of creative planning about how do we give food to lots of people without it being $1 million, right? And we're hoping to present a solid plan to the board of the retreat, and then make sure that all of the licensors for camp will approve that plan too. Once all of those boxes are checked, if the lodge happens, awesome. If it doesn't happen, we'll bring it without any. That's
I don't know, did y'all hear some of that? Okay.
Obviously, someday they're gonna have to do a high report for touching down and destroying the children's Christian camp, but this side of that, was there ever any finding how we did that?
No one even ever came out and looked at it. They just said, yep, it happens. I mean, part of that is, to be honest, out in the Key Pen, we have one officer, one, for the entire Key Peninsula. And I think we've only ever seen him
he's never come down here.
I mean, he's never, we've never seen him even drive down to where we are. We've only seen him driving once ever down there on the Key Pen. So that's part of the issue. So there's tons, I've almost made a calendar of the abandoned, burnt vehicles that get stolen in Tacoma and then abandoned on the Key Pen Highway as we drive by them. Because they kind of drive there and then realize there's nowhere to go, so they abandon them. But that's what you're kind of dealing with over there is it's part of Pierce County, but unfortunately it's very rural. It's very isolated over there.
But with security, and we have dogs now too.
Yeah.
We have a dog that lets us know if anything is around all the time.
Yeah.
All right, I think that'll be.
I think that'll be good.
About wrapping up. Thank
Yeah.
you so much this morning.
No, thank you.
Well, I know, caretakers